I was at the Lion King play last night, so I didn't get home till like 3 o'clock.
Yeah. How was that? Like, that's probably like Chicago's got a pretty like big Broadway scene, eh?
I actually went to South Bend, Indiana, so that's where Notre Dame is.
Oh, okay.
There's a theater there, and it was pretty nice. It was I would say like a smaller theater, but the play was great.
Yeah.
They did a good job.
Are you back in Chicago right now, or are you still out there?
No, I'm in Chicago right now.
Okay. How many deep dish pizzas are you getting per week out there?
Honestly, that's actually been kind of my thing. Not deep dish, but I've been trying just different pizza places out here, and it's been pretty good.
Yeah. I was there. I was in Chicago last year. I think it was Giordano's is the pizza place where
That's the place where everybody goes. Yeah,
it's the place to be. Yeah, and me and my buddy were there, and like obviously being from Canada, we thought large pizza we could probably kill that between the two of us, but a large in the States is different than large in Canada, and we had a large deep dish pizza.
It's like a double XL in Canada. Plus those pieces of pizza are like pies, like slices of pies.
Yeah, I know. Lesson definitely learned.
Exactly.
Anyways, man, I want to start off saying congratulations signing with the Argos. I know that's probably pretty huge for you growing up in the area.
Yeah, thank you. I grew up watching Argos games. It's kind of crazy to, look back and see where you first started watching football. Because as Canadian kids growing up, we didn't really watch that much NFL. I feel like we watched more CFL.
Mm-hmm.
And just to see myself, I haven't put on the uniform yet, but just to vision myself playing for the Argos is pretty cool.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think they don't realize, like people maybe that aren't too familiar with the CFL, just how popular it is. Because even myself, being from Hamilton, I was probably a Tiger Cats fan before an NFL fan, right? And I wanted to play for the Tiger Cats before wanting to play for any sort of NFL team.
Yeah, exactly. So I played for the Mississauga Bobcats in the MFL. And our big game was at Ivor Wynne Stadium. So I'm sure you know about Ivor Wynne.
100%. Yeah.
That was our big game. So, CFL was just always kind of like the thing to just watch. And as a football player, you were even kind of like, oh, I want to be in the CFL, not knowing, really much about the NFL. And, as you get older, you start seeing more guys that or met as a kid playing in the league, and it's crazy to be here.
Yeah, when you left to go to Northern Illinois, were you always planning on coming back to Canada eventually and play some ball, professional
Honestly,
ball? I guess
I left to go to Culver Military Academy in Culver, Indiana, when I was 15. So I went for my grade 11 to 12 years in Indiana, and my goal was to go to the NBA. Like I wanted to play. Yeah, I wanted to play basketball, and that's when I started playing receiver. So I started playing receiver in grade 11. I didn't really have my coaches were great there, but they didn't really know much about the fundamentals of receiver. Plus, they never really had somebody at receiver like me. I still hold, I think, 3 records at the school.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up getting a scholarship to Northern Illinois. And when I got there, I was like, man, I'm so far behind these guys.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use this as a way to get my my education. I'm not sure how many people graduated from college in my family, but I'm pretty sure I'm the first one to leave Canada and graduate from a school in America. So that was a big deal in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got there, the competitiveness, was brought out of me because I was just around so many great players, and Once I started seeing the potential that I had, I was like, okay, like now I want to like have a shot at the NFL. I think it's realistic. And got drafted to Calgary in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of think about that whole draft process. Were you did you have any expectations going to the CFL draft?
Honestly, I thought that like I was so when you're in the draft process, first of all, the only team that saw me in person, which was at my pro day at Northern Illinois, was Calgary.
Okay.
It was really weird because you would think that teams would put more time into kind of evaluating Canadian guys that are in America.
For sure.
But I feel like the Canadian guys in Canada, they get looked at more just because they're like, I don't know, maybe like they're easily available, so they don't have to come to America to see us play. And I thought that I was gonna go to Toronto actually, because in all the articles they're saying they needed a receiver, a Canadian receiver, and I'm like, well, I'm down the street, I'm a local guy. I had some of the best numbers for my class, I think. I'm like, I'm going home. And I think they had the 4th overall pick that year. And they didn't end up picking me, obviously. And I fell all the way to the 2nd round, but it's, there's only like 9 picks, I think, in the 1st round. So I fell to 16, and Calgary ended up picking me up. And the rest is history.
Yeah. So did you get in? Like, did you participate in the CFL Combine at all, or was it just your pro day there at Northern Illinois or whatever?
I didn't participate in the CFL Combine. I think that may have been what kind of hurt my stock a bit, if you say. So, but it was literally, I think it was a day or two after my pro day, so I was already gassed from,
right.
You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. That's a long day of just testing and all types of stuff. So, and I was all the way in Illinois, so I don't think that I would have really performed well if I went to CFL Combine. Just because I had a pro day already.
And I gotta imagine that something like a pro day is not only exhausting physically, but it's got to be exhausting mentally as well, because just the amount of pressure that some athletes might feel in pro day, where there's so many scouts watching you, right? And this is kind of like your make it or break it moment for some people.
100%. It's a lot of it is mental, because you've been training for 3 months, so you already know what your body can do, and how, and your improvements that you've made. But it's different when it's probably, how many guys was there? I think there was like nine guys at my pro day, and there's probably like 15 scouts. So whenever you go to do an event, everybody's watching you, including your teammates and your coaches from college. So it's just like it's a tryout where everybody is looking at you, and you have to remember everything. All your cues that you worked on, because some guys get there and they try and do too much, and they actually do worse. So it's crazy.
Yeah. How easy was it, or how hard was it to like block out all those like distractions and like block out like the pressure of having all the eyes on you?
For me, I felt like I did a pretty good job, to be honest. Because it was more like if I'm not gonna do well, it's just gonna be, because of my physical attributes. So maybe I'm not fast enough, or maybe I'm not gonna jump far enough, or just because my bench press may have been low or something like that. I wasn't gonna let like my mental beat me. So I made sure that everything I did, I was focused on that, and nothing else mattered. So each event, I made sure that it was just that event I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about anything coming up. So I felt like that helped me a lot.
When you mentioned you kind of, maybe had a bit expectation to be picked up by Toronto, and didn't happen, and slipping to the 2nd round of the draft, was there any kind of sort of doubt started creeping in your mind of like you as a football player by slipping to the second round of a draft, even though, like you said, there was only like 9 or 10 picks per round, but still the kind of concept of not, going where you expect it to go.
That actually, like, it never crept into my mind, just because I just felt like it was just teams not knowing who I was.
So a bit of a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. I carried that. I still carry it, especially coming off of an injury. I was just like, they just don't know who I am. So whenever we played them, I always tried to have a good game. I always made sure I tried to have a good game. And not only because it was home, but because, they didn't pick me.
Yeah.
So
what kind of injury were you coming off of?
I had a lower body injury. So I tore my knee last season in August. Okay. And it was a minor doctors will say it's a minor knee injury, but I was I was on crutches for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Non-weight bearing. So as an athlete, that you just want to walk, you want to run, you're used to being able to move, and I was just I was on crutches, and it sucked, but it's not a big injury like an ACL or nothing was broken. It's just something that you have to rehab just because you haven't been using your leg for 2 months.
Yeah, injuries are it's obviously such a tough thing for athletes, and even someone like myself, when I have an injury, it just feel like it just eats up inside me, because all I want to do is play the sport that I like to play, and if something's holding me back, it's just such a sudden change in my routine that it's really hard. Like the first couple of times you have an injury, to really kind of grasp the concept of sitting on the sidelines and not participating, watching your team either succeed or fail.
100%. And the thing is in Calgary, I got hurt in the quote unquote summer of Calgary, which, it may snow in June. So you never really have a summer, but so I got hurt in August, and I was basically inside for all of summer. So I didn't even get to see much of the sun. Like the days where I would go outside, it would be like gray, and it really affects your mood. It really, I think, most guys who have an injury that puts them out of football or their sport, they just naturally get depressed without even knowing it. And that was something that I had to kind of just get over. Eventually.
So after the season and kind of the free agency period started, did you always have Toronto kind of as a destination?
I did. There's kind of hesitancy just because they've had two 4-game winning seasons in a row. And the fan support, it's there, but it's not always there. And I understand, because it's hard for teams to go and watch a team that's not performing well. But when Coach Dinwiddie got there, I saw that as a place for me to go, just because I know how he is. I know his work ethic and what he's going to expect out of his players. And it was home. So I was like, if anything like that, if I have an injury like I had last year, I'll be home. And that's a big deal, because, my girlfriend lives in Illinois. So she was 36-hour drive away. My mom's a 36-hour drive away. My dad actually lives in Edmonton, so he was a 3-hour drive away. Right. But, when you're going through stuff like that mentally, and you don't have anybody there other than my roommate, it's a tough place to be. And I was just like, I'm going to take this chance to be home. Yeah. Because I haven't been home since I was 15 years old, and I'm 27 now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's just like, it's a great situation to be in. And I like the way the team's headed.
Yeah. It's like you said, I mean, you have people in your life to talk to mentally, but there's something, it just feels different when you're face to face with somebody rather than over the phone or something. I just kind of, you think about just like humans in general and how social we are, that kind of face-to-face interaction means more than video chat or something, or maybe because video chat is so new. So definitely can kind of appreciate, the wanting and the desire to go home.
100%. And, like I said, I haven't experienced the Ontario summer in like 15 years. I don't think I've been home for my mom's birthday since I was like 13. So those are the little things that kind of just matter over time, especially as you get older. So I'm happy I made that decision.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Like, think about all the sacrifices athletes go through, especially Canadians that play in the CFL, because Canada is such a large country, like the actual size of the country, where if you're playing in Calgary, for example, like you're so far away from Toronto, or you go over to the States and you're different country. When you were like 15, 16 years old going to the States, did that stuff ever kind of cross your mind or kind of make you hesitant of leaving Canada?
Honestly, it never did, just because growing up, my dad went to high school in Ohio, and he would always talk about the basketball competition, and I loved basketball. Like, that was my first love, and I always wanted to leave and go. I want to go play in America. I'm like 8, 9 years old, telling my dad I want to go play in America.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go play in America. He said, "You're not ready yet." And then I started playing AAU for CIA Bounce, and I think we started maybe traveling to America when I was like 10, 11 years old. So like I've been to more places in America than I have in Canada. So
right.
When I finally went to Indiana when I was 15, that was the first milestone I hit, that like I accomplished something that I wanted to do. So it was actually weird coming back to Canada after being in America for so long, especially kind of, I was born and raised in Canada, but I feel like when I was becoming a man, like I was in America. So I was just so used to that.
Mm-hmm. Almost feel like you're more, like half American, half Canadian in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I'm here right now. So
yeah. How many summers in a row have you been going back every summer to the States?
I do travel back every summer, whether it just be to see some friends, see my girlfriend, random things. I still go back to my high school just to see my teachers and the people that took care of me when I was in high school. But this is my first time being here permanently.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's been pretty good.
Yeah. I know one thing that I saw you mention one of your Instagram posts is you try not to get too hyped before a game. Was that something that you always realized, or was there something that, clicked in your mind at some point where you kind of realized that that's maybe the best approach to take?
Yeah, honestly, I can't remember a game where I've been too hype and didn't perform well. So I think that it's just what I've realized about myself, because you see people, no matter what the game is, and it could come with just playing in a lot of big games as a young kid. It's just, you just know what you're capable of doing. You just go out and perform. But I think that for me, it just comes more natural. But that's just kind of advice I give to the new guy, like the rookies and people who are coming to the league, just because some guys come from small schools where they don't play in front of crowds. Like, you go to Saskatchewan or Winnipeg, Hamilton, those games are sold out, and they get real intense. And, some guys don't perform well under those circumstances, but some guys love it and some guys thrive in it. And for me, I just always notice, staying calm just works best for me.
Yeah, and a lot of people compare like some of the CF, like you mentioned, like Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and Hamilton, and other cities when they're bumping too. That the CFL crowds really resemble like a college football crowd in a way, just kind of the fandom and the tailgating that's a part of it. I can imagine that like playing in Northern Illinois. I mean, I know you guys had a couple of good seasons there, had some
Yeah.
bowl appearances, and that had to help a bit of, dealing with the spotlight that comes with playing professional football. For such a great team like Calgary, I mean, Calgary in and of itself probably sells out most of its games because you guys are in the Grey Cup every other year.
Yeah. Going to school in America definitely helped. I think NIU, the max capacity was between 20 and 30,000. So it's about the same as Calgary, but we would go and play out of conference games versus like Iowa, Ohio State, teams like that. And they would have 100 to 120,000 people in a crowd. And that's bigger than like some professional stadiums.
Like I think like the Ohio State Stadium in like Michigan, they're like the top like 3 or 4 like biggest stadiums in all of like North America. It's crazy how many fans they get for college football.
Yeah, so you get to play in front of stuff like that, and when you come to the CFL, it's kind of just like, oh, this isn't that bad. I've already done this before. So I can only imagine how the guys at the big schools feel, because they're just so used to it.
Yeah. What's kind of like the biggest mental thing that you've taken away from being in the CFL for the past couple of years, compared to maybe something you didn't realize was as important, or something you kind of had maybe not as developed playing like prep football or college football?
Honestly, I think just the time and preparation you put into getting ready for a game, and the games come up like they come up on you like real fast, and you have to watch film, you have to study your opponent, you have to study your game plan. And in college it wasn't so much like that. We would watch film, and we would go over our game plans, but in the CFL, and maybe it was just Calgary, but I highly doubt it, you just had to really know everything. And I took pride in knowing everything. I knew every receiver spot in the offense, and that's a testament to my coaches and just the system that I was in. But the biggest thing was just game prep on the mental side, and then also just knowing that your body isn't going to feel good every game. You play 18 games, so your body's not going to feel good every game. So there's also that mental aspect of kind of just talking to yourself and just pushing yourself through it. And it's funny because most of the games that I've had that have been good games, I didn't feel good coming in. But then, as the game gets going, I'm like, okay, like I'm starting to feel good. And you just end up playing well.
Yeah. Football is the schedule for football is so different than other sports, because like with soccer, like hockey and basketball, stuff like that, you're playing every couple of days. So there's not a lot of time in between, where with football, you have a whole week in between games. And if it's a bye week, you have 2 weeks between games. So if there's a situation where, you guys lose a close game, or maybe you feel like you didn't perform as well as you could have during the game, and you have like a week or two to think about it, what's kind of like your thoughts for the week or two? Is it something that's kind of eating at you those whole 2 weeks, or do you try and leave it in the rearview mirror as quick as possible?
I'm actually one of the worst people at letting something get to me as far as my performance. I take that very seriously. So that's been something that I've definitely worked on. Just because it's a long season, and if I keep dwelling on the game that I had, if it was bad, or if I didn't make this play, drop the ball, I didn't want that to carry over to the other games. And I realized that my first ever game in Calgary, my first game where I was basically a starter, because one of the older guys got hurt within like the first 2 drives, and I got thrown into a new spot, and I made some plays and showed some potential, but I had a lot of mess ups. And I literally went home. Like as soon as I got home, I started watching the game, and I was like, okay, it's not that bad. And that's what you realize. It's never as good as you think, and it's never as bad as you think in professional sports. And you kind of just have to look at it, be honest with yourself, because I feel like a lot of guys are delusional with with sports, and they don't take ownership for their mistakes or what they've done. and you just have to self-assess yourself, and you move on and get ready for the next game.
Yeah, that's one thing that I try to preach a lot with athletes is, they want to forget about their mistakes, right? They just want to like not think about it, just, put it in the trash can, so to say, and pretend like it never happened. But if you don't pretend like your mistakes never happened, there's no opportunity to learn from it, both on a physical and mental, part of the game.
Exactly. If you're looking at it critically, and you are looking at it to improve, then I feel like it's a good thing. But and then you move on after. But if you're just moving on every time and you're not correcting your mistakes, then it's just like, you're not doing what you should be doing.
Yeah. I know you said you kind of grew up obviously grew up an Argos fan and a huge CFL fan. What was it like, meeting some of the players that, you might have grown up watching, maybe someone like Dave Dickinson when he was your coach at Calgary, or even getting on the phone with Pinball Clemens? Because I know you talked about trying not to get too hyped for a game, but even myself, I would have a really hard time, if somebody like, Danny McManus called me or something, or, Matt Sundin on the Leafs or something like that called me. I was talking to him on the phone. I would just be like losing it.
Yeah. It was cool to hear Coach Dickey the first time he called me, just because I remember watching him. I remember watching him in Calgary. I remember watching him in BC. So I was like, man, like it, and it was. I feel like it was also because of like it was like nostalgic a bit, just because I remember watching him, and then I remember being that little kid playing football, and and then the first time I talked to Pinball, I was like, this guy's nicer than what people give him credit for, and people give him a lot of credit for being a nice guy. So that was just cool to know that that's going to be my general manager. And then obviously football is a business and things may happen, but it's just cool to know that he's the guy who's in charge of everything.
Yeah, I was when I was in elementary school, I was probably about like 5 or 6 years old. He came to our school and gave our school kind of talk and everything about just like being a nice person, like anti-bullying and stuff like that, and like playing sports and confidence, all that stuff. And I'm so happy that he's back in football, especially Canadian football, kind of in some sort of capacity, obviously as a GM, but just because he's such a good role model for not only kids, but for other professional athletes as well. And I can't really think of a better guy to be one of the leaders of the Argonauts and, kind of steer you guys in the right direction.
100%. Because, his name still holds weight in the community, and he does a lot of stuff outside of football as well. So hopefully, he starts getting more guys in the community and start growing the team more, because I think they missed some years in there as far as the grassroots stuff, like going to schools and getting guys there just to get kids familiar with some faces and get some people in the stands. But they're definitely fixing that now.
Yeah, listen, before we wrap up, do you have a plan to come back to Toronto, like a date where you're going to start your I guess training camp or whatever it is?
We start training camp May 16th. I'm actually flying into Toronto tonight.
Oh, wow.
Just for a couple of days, just to see my family and whatnot. But May 16th, camp starts. And I think we're going to be at the University of Guelph.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So,
Yeah. Listen, man, I'm excited for you guys this season, especially for you, because I know how much it means to play for your hometown team and the team you grew up loving. It kind of gives you just that extra bit of motivation and just love for the game, I got to imagine. So wish you guys nothing but the best this season. Maybe we'll see at Argos Ticats Eastern Finals. I don't know if I can cheer for you guys in that scenario, but up until then, I wish you guys the best of luck.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time.